Whatever is spoken by me comes to me from some of you and is returned to you through me, and then my mind again remains vacant as it was. It is like a dry stream through which suddenly flows a torrent of water during the rainy season. At the end of which becomes dry again. That is exactly the position and state of my mind. As the thoughts from you enter this empty head and are returned to you, sometimes I give out deep, subtle thoughts, sometimes sweet words, or sometimes abuses and intemperate language as it comes to me. After this delivery, my head again becomes empty as it was. Whatever good or bad comes to me is returned to you.
Before Upasani Maharaj was enlightened, before he attained the state of being conscious of the infinite and the limited simultaneously, he was born as Kashinak Govindra Shastri and went through unimaginable difficulties and austerities in his quest for God and truth. One famous story was when he stayed alone in a cave on a high hill and went without food and water for nearly a year. This story starts when Kashinak was 19 and left Pune and the temple of Shankar in a loin cloth that was torn and tattered, and started walking along the railroad that led from Pune to Bombay.
Lonely dreams have passed them by like the fading of a winter sun.
He became bereft of food during the day and bereft of sleep at night. Sometimes walking by the side of the railway tracks and sometimes in the center of them, Kashinak continued to surge forth towards his destination. In time, extremely fatigued and suffering hunger pains, he fell down on the ground absolutely weakened. After some rest, he resumed his journey and saw a small temple almost in ruins. As he entered that temple, his foot slipped into mud, slime and garbage. Kashinak groped to find a wall to pull himself up. After much effort, he identified a spot that was slightly less wet. Exhausted and famished in a near-naked condition, he just fell down and lay there and was so fatigued that immediately he fell asleep.
people say that I am the perfect Parabrahma. The more a person is able to appreciate, experience this Parabrahma state of mind, the more he is able to lose pride, his abhimana. I have attained this state mainly due to my being devoid of all pride.
Approach the doorway in your mind and leave all the rest behind. This green world has nothing colored with money and greed.
What is Parabrahma? All of you and the whole creation is all Parabrahma, but you are not able to experience, to be conscious of that state because of the pride of all shades that you possess. If you lose all pride at this moment, you will at once experience the state of Parabrahma.
Can you see that you're dying? Or even suspect that it's a blessing? Do you keep your eyes on the sign? Or do you look at your watch for time? And the gold is in your pocket, just like you wanted it to be. But it don't mean nothing to me.
Some come here and say, "Make us like yourself." No one can make anyone like this. Whoever casts away fully the feeling of shame, fear, doubt, and abhima, pride, automatically becomes like this.
Turn your attention inside and swim in the formless sublime. Just what do you think you miss here? Maybe him, maybe her, maybe fear. And she's sleeping in your bed, just like you wanted her to be. But it don't mean nothing to me.
I was somehow able to discard my dhoti and become naked. I was called a madman. Many ask me, if they become like this, naked and mad, would they become like me? My reply is, because you people feel that by doing like me, you will not become like me, you are not ready to become like me. This is the whole thing.
I once saw call if you look back. When you thought you had the answers, just like you hoped that it would be. But it all means nothing.
If you leave everything and sit in one place with full determination for good, you are bound to become like me, because to do this is one of the principal methods of losing all pride. It is not that I alone am in the state of Parabrahma. Everything in this world, the whole creation, is in the state of Parabrahma. The only point is that very few human beings are able to experience their original state. Almost all beings are engrossed in the affairs of the world, and they love to remain engrossed in them. They never try to adopt or even look to the methods that make one conscious of one's original state of Brahma. Those that do not feel interested in the affairs of the world, those that feel they should get out of the affairs of the world, those who feel disgusted with the world, well, it is they who adopt various methods to get out of it in the course of time. It is they who are qualified to attain Brahma.
While traveling further in this journey, Kashanath reached a region in that vicinity which seemed to draw him and lure him towards it. Suddenly, his sight fell on a mountain, and his consciousness was captivated by its beauty. So deep did that sight affect his mind that his only thought was to climb that mountain and up there bring about an end to his life. He thought to go and meet his relations one last time and then return to this very same spot. However, before venturing homewards, he decided to thoroughly investigate this beautiful spot of nature and went forth towards the mountain. It was dusk when Kashanath managed to reach the highest point of that mountain, and he found that on one of its sides there was a small cave. Its placement was such that no human being could reach it without difficulty. For a while he continued to gaze at the cave, and then took courage, and with the help of a small tree, jumped to reach that small recess. In a moment he found himself safe and sound at the entrance of that cave. It seemed as if nature itself had carved out that small recess for Kashanath to sit in solitude. Nature too was thus assisting him. Kashanath now thought of postponing his desire of returning home to his elders and tearing off his tattered garments. He made a workable loincloth and took up an asana yogic posture there.
I might not have a home, but I've got a soul that keeps me warm again, my friend.
This cave became Kashanath's home for some time and then turned dangerous. Kashanath found that was the ideal place to invite death to come and fetch him. Death, death, and death was the sole thought preoccupying him. The cave was so remote that it would be difficult to fetch even a grain of food or a drop of water, and so Kashanath just sat down there in that cave waiting for Yama, the god of death, to arrive. An entire month passed with Kashanath seated in that position without eating or drinking and without sleep too. Moreover, he did not even slightly move his form. It was in this one posture that he continued to remain seated. The second month began, and as quickly as did this month arrive, month after month passed. And finally Kashinath spent nearly a year there, without a morsel of food, water or sleep. Kashinath, in the highest point of that mountain, in that small cave-like recess, remained seated in the same condition and had continued to chant the following words.
I am not at all concerned about my life, Lord. Take me away from here, for I am very happy to die. This body, this creation, and this entire world which you have created is like the stuff of dreams. It is without substance. O highly compassionate Creator, do free me from the bondage of this false, delusional Maya.
During this long duration, Kashinath at times experienced himself to have become separated from his physical form, and at times had the awareness that he was rejoined to his mortal frame. In this manner, Kashinath experienced such states of being distinct from his form, as well as states wherein he thought he no longer had any awareness of anything at all. At times, he was again roused to his body and the surrounding world, and then found that his body had just become a covering garment or a heap that veils, and he could take up and wear whenever he wished. And similarly, whenever he so desired, he could remove that garment. When Kashinath was conscious of himself and aware as to who he was, where he was, and what was he involved in, he had the perception that it would not be long before he once again would have to begin journeying on his route. When such awareness was not present, Kashinath found himself to be incorporeal without tangible form, and found himself moving about in all directions.
I might look alone, but I've got 1,000 friends in my hands again.
A man who tries for any happiness, temporal or spiritual, is always in trouble. Too much of effort is required to obtain worldly pleasures. That is, the pleasures are not commensurate with the efforts. They are too little compared to them. Moreover, they are not of a lasting nature. They are a temporary affair lasting for a few days. The various objects of pleasure obtained during this lifetime either vanish before one's death, or one dies before they can be utilized. It thus becomes necessary and natural for a person to try for the other type of happiness, the spiritual happiness. That bliss is always there. It is permanently there. It is not to be created. It is self-existent. However, one does not experience it because one is all the while busy in trying for the worldly pleasures. A man is used to undertake effort for worldly pleasure, and he remains always busy in doing so. As he experiences, bit by bit, that the worldly pleasures are not of a lasting nature, he begins to cease running after them and slowly begins to look for the spiritual one. No effort is actually required to attain spiritual pleasure. The efforts one thinks one undertakes for attaining the bliss are really the efforts done in preventing oneself from trying for and enjoying the worldly pleasures. The effort to stop oneself from running after the worldly pleasures.
Now all I can say is that I shouldn't complain. Complaining's a waste and it's always the same. I'm giving away all the trash and disgrace, as well as the gold and the diamonds and praise. Because of passing to you, it's really all that I do. There's no separating me, no finger pointing at you. There's no bag out of blame, you know I tell you the truth. The maker of games will give you nothing to lose.
Knowing how to remain detached from the world and its affairs while still in the world can only be learnt from a master. A person attempts the worldly life and family life for happiness, and to do so has to undertake many good and bad actions. Whether in service or in business, one has to do many a false thing, and all false actions are always sinful. If one wishes to avoid the effects of such actions and the sinful results thereof, one has to do what Shivaji did. Just as Shivaji surrendered his all, in the same way, one has to surrender their all at the feet of the Master. Then the effects of all actions, good or bad, pass on to him.
The rise of the many will collapse into one. Giving it all away is all that can be done. Giving and giving all the sweat and the blood. You gotta keep on giving if you want true love. Because of passing to you, it's really all that I do. There's no separating me, no finger pointing at you. There's no bag out of blame, you know I tell you the truth. The maker of games will give you nothing to lose.
In a house, a sink is always built in a corner for doing all sorts of washing. If this sink is not provided with an outlet, all that dirty water will remain in the room. The floor of the whole house will become damp. Eventually, the water will collect in a pool. Vermin will grow in it. Unbearable odors will be spreading, and ultimately illness will make its presence in that family. All this is due to not providing an outlet to the sink to take the water away.
The rise of the many will collapse into one. Giving it all away is all that can be done. Giving and giving all the sweat and the blood. You gotta keep on giving if you want
the same way, if an outlet is not provided for all these bad and false actions to run out, the sins will go on accumulating and put one to interminable suffering and pain for births on end. This is how one gets into the chain of births and deaths. If, on the other hand, one has offered his all to God, to a perfect master, then the effects of all of one's actions pass unto him, and one is saved from suffering and pain. One is saved from subsequent births and deaths. One can do anything, earn money, do any business, have a family, have women, and so on, but one has to establish a relationship with God or a master resembling the sink with its outlet. Then one is always free, detached, and pure.
Because I'm passing to you, it's really all that I do. There's no separate me, no finger pointing at you. There's no back out of blame, you know I'll tell you the truth. The maker of games will give you nothing to lose.
Good or bad actions while in the world are inevitable. Pleasures and pain, therefore, are inevitable. One has to secure some means to protect oneself from them. And what are these means? They are actions according to one's faith, in accordance with the instructions of one's master.
'Cause I pass it to you, it's really all that I do. There's no separating me, no finger pointing at you. There's no back out of blame, you know I'll tell you the truth. The maker of games will give you nothing to lose.
A person who behaves accordingly, or who has surrendered his all to the master, is never affected by the actions in the world. On the other hand, such a person always attains easily all the temporal and spiritual happiness.
One day, Kashinath found that two people were standing right in front of him and were gazing at him with severe anger in their eyes. From their outward appearances, one of them was a Hindu and the other a Muslim. They were engaged in a heated conversation among themselves, with harsh tones and suppressed violence. Then, pointing their fingers towards Kashinath, they seemed to be hatching some inner conspiracy between themselves. Both were frightful in their appearance and expression, and their disfigured forms made one wonder whether if they were men or demons. With their cross and fiery voices, and with eyes as red as vermilion, asked in a loud, rude voice, "O fool, who the hell are you?" Kashinath tried very hard to give some reply to them, but since his tongue had stopped working, not a sound or murmur escaped. On seeing that Kashinath had not bothered to reply, those two were further instigated, and they threatened Kashinath that they would throw him down in the deep valley of that mountain that instant. Kashinath had the sudden thought that finally the compassionate Lord was answering his desire to die, and that these were the god of death, Yama, who was pleased with him. Kashinath, considering the two as attendants to death, replied to their threats only within his mind, since he no longer had the strength to utter a word or converse. I was waiting so long for the arrival of you, so that you could release me from this body. Whatever you wish to do, and in whatever manner, I am happy to accompany you. They started smiling sweetly, and with a laughing face glanced at Kashinath with affection, and even uttered some words of courage and comfort to him, and as quickly as they had come, disappeared from there. The moment they disappeared, Kashinath felt himself to be unbearably thirsty. A year had passed, and this sudden feeling of overwhelming thirst made Kashinath very distressed and very restless.
To ascend in the spiritual line, one has to stop all dealings with the worldly ups and downs, and then take to the path of descent in the cause of God. Now, what is this path of descent? It means to accept with grace all insults, all losses, all troubles and sufferings in the cause of God. The more one takes to this descent, the more he is able to ascend quickly. He has not to exert for ascension. It is automatic. I will tell you a story about it. There was a couple who had only one son, and he was naturally very dear to them. His parents, however, were really wise persons. They felt that if they really loved their son, they must treat him in a way that would lead to his permanent good. And as such, they always treated him a bit roughly. The father never showed his son any appreciation. The boy grew. He learned things very quickly. He began to be treated with respect all over. His father alone remained rough with him. His father even used to treat him in an insulting manner in public. The boy felt this treatment of his father as unreasonable, but he quietly suffered it. Years passed. The boy became famous. As his fame grew, he began to weary of the treatment of his father. One day his patience got exhausted. He felt that the time had come when he should remove his father from the world. One night, he sat on the roof of his father's bedroom with a huge stone in his hands and was trying to get to the place where his father was sleeping. He heard his parents talking to each other. Naturally, he decided to listen. The mother said, "It is not fair that you should insult the boy like that in the presence of others. He has already gained fame as a young man." I feel you should now try to abstain from it. The father said, "You forget that he has become very great and famous for his age because of my treatment to him. I really and naturally love him intensely. I feel that not only he should be famous in the world, but he should equally become famous in the spiritual line. and that is why I treat him like that. The more he becomes famous in the world, the more I will insult him. As he goes on bearing these insults quietly and patiently, he will be progressing rapidly in the spiritual line.
Could this be reality?
The more he can bear, the closer to God he will be. The more he is enduring, the more famous he is becoming. From the worldly point of view, God has given his grace to him, and that is why he has become famous early, and his fame is spreading rapidly. If he goes on bearing insults inflicted by me for no cause at all, patiently and quietly, he will also be able to attain God quickly. If I would have cajoled him from infancy because he is our only son, he would never have attained this state. If I would have given him sweets every day, if I would have given him the best clothes, if I would have patted him even when he did not do his lessons, he would have turned into a vicious, irresponsible, and sinful fool. Some people say they treat their children like that because of love. But such treatment gives them a bad name in the end. The treatment of false love leads to a bad name. If we really love our son, should we want his name to be put to shame in the end? If right from the beginning, a person begins to suffer insults, pain, etc., patiently, he automatically gets both the worldly and the spiritual happiness. That is the truth. I love my boy, in order that he should never, never get the least of infamy. I have got to treat him like that. I do it in his interest. I do it because I really love him. My whole jiva is centered on him. The boy heard this conversation. It opened his eyes. He understood the actions of his father. He now felt how intensely he was loved by his father. He threw away the stone, descended, went to his father at once, told him everything, and just prayed and prayed to him for mercy.
Now, forgetting about dying, his longing for water and to quench his thirst was dominating his mind. Previously, just as nature had always run to assist Kashinath, similarly, this time too, nature arrived as a support for him. The evening sky was soon covered with clouds, and with great thunder and flashes of lightning, rain began to pour from the heavens well into the night. Then it lessened, and then stopped altogether, and everything once again returned to its prior silence. With his right hand that he had kept in a semi-mobile condition, and with great difficulty, Kashinath managed to wet his parched throat from the water gathered there, and continued to do for a span of 3 days. Going for a year without food, water, sleep, and sitting in that asana posture had reduced the body of Kashinath to a stick, just bones, skeleton-like, and there was hardly a drop of blood in his body. He massaged his body for days, experiencing immense pain in the process. Finally, after such a long and strenuous effort, Kashinath did regain some strength and was able to slightly move his arms and limbs. Kashinath saw a cluster of huts in the opposite distance, and inferring that it must be the settlement of a small town, desired to reach those huts. Though it was a task as good as impossible, due to the fact that a year ago, with full health and with all the strength, a healthy body, and the help of a tree, he had managed to descend into this recess of this cave. And now, after a year, in this good as dead condition, how would he be able to descend, was the very serious and dangerous question looming over him. With great effort, he again caught hold of that tree, and falling away from the precipice of the cave, hung in mid-air. But since he was unable to bear any weight, in the next instant he let go of his grip of the tree. Kashinath fell, tumbling and dashing all the way down the mountain. At the bottom was a large stone, and coming to a halt, fell down on the stone with a thud. Merely skin and bones, yet still alive, and lying there miraculously safe. After a span of some hours, he managed to get up, and though in immense pain and suffering, he started descending further from the mountain. But night had arrived, therefore, Kashinath did not proceed further and waited for morning to arrive, lying there awake and resting.
To be a destitute is to become God. Parameshvara is the lowest destitute, the meanest beggar. Just as a beggar possesses nothing, Parameshvara also possesses nothing. He is just only. Even though from the spiritual point of view, the position of both of them is alike, you feel that there is a great difference between them because you do not see the Parameshvara and hence are not able to know about his position. A beggar is one who begs, so one who has absolutely nothing with him and who begs just for bare necessities is a real beggar. He feels that he has got a body by the will of God, which must somehow be sustained until the end of its term, and who is unable to exert to earn the bare necessities of life, and therefore begs for them, is the real beggar. There is one more superior state of beggar, but one who is in that state should not really be called as a beggar. Of course, it does not matter what he is called. Who is this superior type of beggar? He is the one who has no pride, no energy, no mind, and no consciousness of having a body. Such a one, however, never feels the necessity to beg. Somebody may ask, does it mean that he is a dead man? Well, such a one is not dead. Both he and his body are there, they are visible to you. But he is not conscious of having a body.
A beggar has to beg, possessing nothing, only just the one. Really, he is king. The greatest wealth knows no ownership.
Really speaking, one who is a real beggar, a real destitute, is the Parameshvara. From the worldly point of view, one may differentiate between them as the real and false beggar, but spiritually they are alike.
Dead man to the gross, gross to other men. He is infinite, soul light permanent. The greatest wealth knows no ownership.
You people only know the beggar that begs at your door. You have no idea of these higher types of beggars. To the one whose point of view is more worldly, all the three types of beggars appear to be the same. After all, these higher types of beggars look like ordinary beggars to you, and therefore it is advisable always to offer whatever one can to any beggar that comes at the door.
Bliss becomes the gift when there's nothing left. Turn the soul light on, it's free and omniscient.
Some may say, but Upasani Baba, when a beggar comes here, you are seen to turn him out. Well, my turning him out without giving him anything might be in his real interest. What do you, or can you know about it? How can you know about such actions of mine unless you become like me? So long as you have not attained my state, to turn him out without giving him anything, or to abuse him, etc., should not be done by you. You have accepted the pride of being rich, and hence it is your duty to look after him by giving him the necessities of life.
Bliss becomes the gift when there's nothing left. Turn the soul light on, it's free and omniscient.
You turn him out because you do not like him, or because you think that he will be a source of nuisance, or because you fear him. You don't like him because he begs of you a cent or two or a handful of corn of yours. Because he behaves in a way you don't like, you turn him out. A miser is always upset when a beggar approaches him.
A A beggar has to beg, possessing nothing, only just the one. Really, he is king.
A miser is always upset when a beggar approaches him.
The greatest wealth knows no ownership.
The one whose great wealth and strength is to possess nothing does not like your type of wealth. He calls you people as beggars.
Dead man to the gross, gross to other men. He is infinite, soul light permanent.
Destitutes like me consider you people as beggars. What an effort you have to make to have your things.
The greatest wealth knows no ownership.
Look at me. I have to make no effort for anything at all. Just see what articles and money just flows in here. After all, I did not come to you to ask for all this. What you offer here is transmitted to God. By offering God your false things, you get the true ones from Him. I have talked over this subject about offering false things to obtain the true. If you give Him all of yours, then you will receive all of His, the infinite. In short, one should become a destitute and make others the same and enjoy the bliss that automatically comes then. You people do not do it.
The greatest wealth knows no ownership.
You people run after false riches and thus entitle yourself to hell.
Dead man to the gross, gross to other men. He is infinite, soul light permanent.
The next morning he set out, stumbling and dragging himself onward. He went a short distance when he was spotted by two women who were walking there. On seeing this strange being struggling to walk, half gliding, half sliding, made them terrified, and they stood there gazing at him. When Kashineth's sight fell on them, he saw the fear on their faces and gestured to them not to be afraid of him. Understanding his gestures and mustering courage, these women went forth and stood near Kashinath, who with great effort and in a low voice exercised his tongue and said, "Take me to those huts." The women replied, "Our men will come here and will lift you all the way to that village." Those sweet tribal women felt pity on Kashinath and his death-like state and rubbed their hands on his body, and whilst doing so, their eyes filled with tears of compassion. After some time, he felt slightly better and again urged them to escort him to their village, and they themselves lifted him as easily as one would a weak child and started towards their village.
If you are really desirous of attaining infinite bliss, you must develop two essential qualities: endurance and humility.
Yeah, who am I? Now who am I to think that I'm infallible? indestructible. Yeah, who am I? Now who am I to think I'm unequivocal, undeniable? Yeah, who am I? Now who am I to think that I'm this body breathing? Now who am I? Yeah, who am I to think that I'm this conscience principle? Yeah, who am I? Now who am I? Yeah, who am I? Everything inside me's dying, but I still keep trying to live.
You should always try to bear all things like heat and cold that affect the body. If you are not able to endure much of cold, you can use some old piece of cloth to protect yourself. Like heat and cold, you should also learn to endure hunger. Always satisfy your hunger when it becomes unbearable with something, but try to endure it as long as you can. In this way, you will increase your power of endurance. You must be able to endure. If you are, however, not able to endure much of physical suffering, you can use something to help yourself. When it comes to mental suffering, you must learn to endure it. With the power of endurance, one will attain the state of be as it may.
Now who am I? I am a man who's seeking cures and treatment, healing. Yeah, who am I? I am a man who's blessed with loyal friendships, companions. And who am I? I am a man who knows that now's the only time to care about. Yeah, who am I? I am a man who values love and family endearingly. Yeah, who am I? And who am I? Yeah, who am I? Now everything inside me's dying, but I still keep fighting to live.
If somebody finds fault with you, defames you, dishonors you, abuses you, talks to you in a very bad, wicked, and sarcastic manner, if your money and property are stolen, if you lose your wife and children, if you lose the things you love, if you are hated and envied, or if anything occurs that shocks you or causes worry and anxiety, it must be borne every way. If somebody throws shit at you and dishonors your wife in front of you, you must be able to bear it. This can be taken, virtually, as the limit of endurance. The second thing is humility, i.e., no pride. We must have no pride at all about anything, good or bad. So much so that we must be able to forget the presence of our body. We must forget whether we are a man or a woman.
Yeah, who am I? Now who am I to think that I'm infallible, indestructible? Yeah, who am I? Now who am I to think I'm unequivocal? body, breathing. Now who am I? Yeah, who am I to think that I'm this conscience? Principles, yeah, who am I? Now who am I? Yeah, who am I? Everything inside me's dying, but I still keep trying to live.
A man who is accustomed to solitude is not able to stand the trouble that comes from dealing with others, and so it does not lead to loss of pride. It is therefore very essential to stay amongst many types of people who have different ways of living and different natures to learn endurance and humility. To learn medicine or law, you have to associate with different subjects and objects. In the same way, to learn endurance and humility, you have to be in the midst of many subjects and objects. How can you learn them in solitude? To learn endurance, one must be surrounded by many others who are capable of causing nuisance and troubles of all sorts. We have to stay in a society like that. People who defame for nothing, envy for nothing, hate for nothing, trouble others for nothing, are the persons who teach us endurance, who teach us how to lose pride. They resemble the principal books of study. You have not to spend any money for these books which teach you utter humility and endurance.
Now who am I? I am a man who's seeking cures and treatment, healing. Yeah, who am I? I am a man who's blessed with loyal friendships, companions. And who am I? I am a man who knows that now's the only time to care about. Yeah, who am I? I am a man who values love and family endearingly. Yeah, who am I? Yeah, who am I? Yeah, who am I? Now everything inside me's dying, but I still keep fighting to live.
All this consideration leads to the conclusion that for attaining happiness, spiritual or temporal, or the infinite bliss, or for passing beyond the state of births and deaths, or for attainment of high mental and supernatural power, or for the good of the world, or the good of the country, or for a very sharp constructive intellect, in other words, for happiness in every way and in every walk of life, the most essential things are endurance and humility. By attaining these qualities, one gets a huge mountain of punya to his credit, and as a result of this punya, all happiness, temporal and spiritual, becomes easily available without almost any effort at all.
By the time it was morning, the news of Kashinath spread with the speed of the wind. All there gathered outside his quarters to have a sight of this unique incarnation. Kashinath, with great difficulty and in broken words, told his entire account of the cave, of his taking a seat in an asana posture, and all that had elapsed since. Listening to his story, many of those gathered had tears in their eyes. and sighed on seeing the helpless, pitiable condition in which Kashanath was, and vowed to do all that was necessary to care for him, to nourish him back to health. For 4 days, Kashinath took only water. The next 3 days, he sustained himself on milk and soon found strength returning to his weakened form. Soon, Kashinath took full meals and was gradually regaining the zeal and strength and intelligence of his strong old self. Yet his form showed no trace of any muscle. His skin too was emaciated and hanging down. However, all such conditions did not in any way deter him from his journey or affect his hope towards God.
In the course of time, when it becomes essential to make changes in the already established order, God Himself appears as an incarnation and makes the necessary changes. It is no use on the part of one or more of us to take up that function and go on discussing and quarreling amongst ourselves about it, for the simple reason that we are not authorized, qualified to do so. God is the sole authority to make changes in what is laid down by Him. The fact that so many of us are finding fault and trying to improve upon the established order of things means that the proper authority to make the necessary changes has not yet appeared on the scene. One man with that authority suddenly appears somewhere, and without listening to anybody, and destroying everything and everybody that interferes with him, he just dominates the whole world with his strength and power. As Lord Shri Krishna has said, that one appears, protects those that deserve, and destroys those that do not deserve, makes the necessary changes in the old order, establishes those changes, and disappears.
Within, without, my only fear is a human being. The birds and beasts don't frighten me. It's the human being suffering, full of faults, full of pride, many troubles, many signs. Human beings suffering. Don't poison others, don't kill your God, don't trouble your brothers, don't kill for anyone, do the best for your family. We're one humanity, do the best for all the others, useful in your suffering. Don't be foolish, don't be vain, don't harm another, don't cause pain. Human beings suffering. Just say, I seal, just say, be as it may. We sing, just say,